BAME. It's such a strange term, you know, putting Black and Asian and minority ethnic people together.
How do I feel about the term BAME? Well, first of all, I hate it.
The term BAME annoys me.
BAME as a term has been a constant source of frustration.
It eliminates a whole group and community and culture of people already by just saying Black and Asian and then, the ethnic minorities.
I think it makes people feel that they're very woke.
I find the term BAME quite difficult, quite problematic.
You're measuring a broad group of people against one metric, which is white, and there's no distinction in that huge group who we are, whether you're East Asian, whether you're Tamil Indian, whether you're West Indian, you are a monolith essentially.
I think it's so reductive. It just reduces us down to BAME.
It doesn't actually mean anything in real terms. It's a tick box. And I often think when I see BAME, it's often about organisations trying to prove that they're not just reaching white people.
To be called BAME as an artist, I think when I get called a BAME artist, but then a white individual will get called an artist. And then that line gets blurred for me because I'm like, well, I'm an artist as well. So why am I being called a BAME artist, but my white counterpart is being called an artist? We're both artists.
Every time somebody says the term BAME, it makes me flinch a little bit. You know, like, I'm more than that. Did you just refer to me by an acronym, like shortening my name before you've gotten to know me? Do you know what I mean? You know, my name's, when someone starts calling me the short form of my name and I'm like, I don't even know you and you're calling me that. You reduce me to something that you think that I am, but you don't know anything about me.
It's a tricky one, I suppose, because it's got its positives and it's also got its negatives as well. In its positives, I suppose, in ways it helps, you know, as we're asking for diversity, you know, we want people to open up opportunities to people of all races.
I used to use it myself as a label to identify, I guess, my acting, my work, my writing, and it came into my consciousness, I reckon, a few years back, maybe 5-6 years ago, when I was at the National Theatre though, holding a talk with some prolific, notable BAME actors and creatives. I thought it was really insightful, and I thought that actually it was a really, at the time, quite empowering term. So I started to utilize it, and it was only a couple of years later when I started writing work that I realized that by utilizing BAME, I was almost othering myself from like the conventional norm, or what we are conditioned to believe is the normal, like the white narratives, the white actors, the white creatives.
It then becomes, so if you're not white, everybody else is classed together, which just seems odd. The fact that there's minority, you know, in that acronym as well, it has its positives and its negatives, I suppose. Probably more negatives.
Like Black, Asian, minority ethnic is such a umbrella term to identify such a large sector of the population. And then this year, with everything that's kind of happened, I shifted my mindset even more so and realized that we're actually an ethnic majority. So I feel like, not that it's a pejorative term, but it's a very problematic term, and I don't really utilize it anymore.
It's difficult because in the life of the acronym BAME, there was a point where we actually took it. But then there became a point where we were like, well, our experience is not the same as Asian people or other ethnic minority people, so why are we cloaking ourselves in this? So my thoughts about BAME is that it's just another umbrella term to other us.
Hands down, yes, I think that the white individuals in my industry believe that by me being Black, I'm an advantage.
It's so presumptuous of like our white counterparts to be like, oh, but then that must be great for you. Like that must be like, there's so much stuff being cast for you. And I'm like, but But you know, there's only there's so little stuff that they're actually looking for. Like, so I've been told once, oh, you're black, you can sing, you shouldn't be out of work. And I'm like, but what makes you think that I want to be in musicals? And not only that, there's 5 shows in the West End that I could probably be in, amongst the countless amount of theatres that are putting on shows and stuff. But those 5, yeah, I'm spoilt for choice, am I?
If people in public are kind of virtue signalling, if you like, kind of speaking about how great it is that the industry is looking to diversify, and yet in private are saying, well, look, you know, there's no work for us anymore.
That agent, I've forgotten her name, the stupid agent who said, you know, my BAME actors are taking jobs away from my white actors. She was so quick to fight for her white actors who were so used to getting loads and loads and loads of auditions. And now these BAME, they're so great, but they're now taking away from like my white clients. Where you been fighting for black people's auditions? You ain't said nothing. You're happy now that you can hire lovely black people because you go to shows and load Lambda and RADA and ArtEd and all of these schools are now picking black people because there's a market for it. And so now you can make some money off of them. But now you're really, really worried that your white clients are losing out on work.
It's a scapegoating sort of thing almost. They're upset because they're probably not getting the work that they thought they would be getting, or as much work as they thought they would be getting. So when they see these, oh, we're looking for BAME cast actors as well, they kind of think, oh, well, that's another reason why I'm not getting roles. It's like, no, because this is an oversaturated business, babes. Like, and quite frankly, there are more white people out here trying to make it in this industry than there are black people. So your beef is not with us.
I think there's a responsibility on everyone in the industry not to perpetuate or kind of give rise to dangerous ideas like that. I mean, you only have to look at the cold hard statistics to know that there isn't some huge rise and kind of influx of black talent over white. It just simply isn't the case. I guess there's a shift in terms of what people are used to. So if you've only been used to a certain thing, then perhaps seeing a couple more black people on stage and on screen might give you the impression that there's a huge kind of a shift that's happened.
It's as if you're never good enough. You've never earned your stripes. Doesn't matter how good you are, what you've achieved, it's belittling the reasoning for you being in that room or for you getting in that job. And they think that because of that, you've got an easy ride because you tick a box. But they don't understand that with ticking that box, the pressure and the judgment, the like constantly being on edge, constantly having to prove yourself because you are the person that ticks that box.
People constantly saying at drama school, oh, you'll work because you're black, you'll get that because you're black, they want black people, you'll get this show. I think it definitely does affect you after a while. And I think sometimes you think, yeah, that's why I'm here, but actually that's not why we're here, because you could go and do another job. Do you know what I mean? It's not, we're here for a reason.
You know, back when I first started, especially, I was not in a position to say, I'm not going to do that job. I needed experience, I needed to learn. So I'm having to apply for those jobs. But then again, it's imposter syndrome of being like, okay, am I in this creative team just because I'm black? And that's an awful feeling in itself. That's a real awful feeling in itself, to know that, you know, you might just be there, not based on talent. And I hope the people who are interviewing me saw my talent and was able to be like, okay, yes, you deserve this role. But again, that seed is planted there from that application, from saying we're looking for BAME artists.
You know, the industry's always been hard. It's always been difficult to get work. If there are kind of movements and calls to create greater equity within that industry, I think that can only be a good thing and shouldn't be confused with the fact that it's always been difficult to work consistently in an industry that is oversaturated.
It's not very helpful. I would never describe myself as BAME. I've never met anybody who describes themselves as being from the BAME community, because there is no such thing. And I think it's much better to ask people how they see themselves. So some people might describe themselves as Black British, or they might describe themselves as, you know, Black African or South Asian or Chinese. I'm yet to meet you know, a white person who actually describes themselves in that way and says, you know, I'm a white woman. It's very rare, because I think people who have not been racialized in that way throughout their lives often just see themselves as a person. They have this kind of cloak of invisibility where they don't see themselves as a race. So I think that's really important to recognise what that actually does by giving people that label BAME. It actually others them immediately, and it sets whiteness as the default, as the standard, and everybody else as other.
I think it would only be useful or fair if there was a term that was similar for white people, like wham or something. Do you know what I mean? You know, something that, you know, was equivalent. So then we can all refer to each other. Are you wham or are you bam? You know what I mean? Are you BAME or you wham? Like, just so that we were all equal. Then it would be fine.
Say what you see. Like, I'm black. I don't mind being referred to as black. That's what I am. I think you'll find many people that are South Asian and the very different parts of being South Asian will be fine with being referred to as they are. Same with people that might come from the Latin community, lots of different communities. So I just find it not helpful. You're missing out on the rich individual experiences of people by lumping everyone into one group.
I sort of feel like I've spent my whole life being a label. One label after the other, but always a label, and never really just referred to as who I am. You know, I'm British, I'm Jamaican heritage, and that's who I am, and I don't see why I have to be or should be lumped together with a whole load of other people who might see themselves differently and have lots of different experiences to me.
I have never described myself. I've never self-identified as BAME or being part of the BAME community. I've always identified myself as black.
This BAME acronym actually allows directors to go, well, we've got this character, so that is going to represent all of them. And not just the black ones, the Asian ones, any ethnic minority. That one characterization, that one idea of who a black person is going to be representative of all of them. And so we've done our job. That is not it. That is not it. The sad thing is that for most of us, and for many people who are stepping into the industry from drama schools especially, we're almost reared to be that.
You know, the worst part about it is when I hear other, and I'll stick with black people because I'm black, when I hear other black people call themselves or call others BAME, it makes us accomplice. It makes us an accomplice in perpetuating the institutional racism from which it emerged. I become an accomplice in the racism when I use the term myself.
I know people have been moving towards the term the global majority. I mean, that's an example, or whatever it is. However I think it's about identifying for yourself and not necessarily feeling like you have to fall into one big umbrella. You know, I use the term black because it's how I experience the world. I am also African, I am also Caribbean, I am also Black British, but I am never BAME.
I think BAME is now an outdated term. I think there are many terms throughout history that have been used to describe us or people of colour or a certain group of people that have become outdated and were maybe acceptable at the time. I think it's about time we started listening to people and seeing what they think is actually acceptable, how they want to identify, rather than just boxing people into one category. I think it's just outdated, and I don't think it's acceptable anymore. I'm certainly not comfortable with it, and I think most people I speak to aren't as well. So I think it's time to actually listen to what people want to be called.
I'm happy to talk about us not from a position of whiteness. Yes, we may be fewer people within this country, but in terms of the world, we're not. And everything is always from a position of whiteness. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's switch it up, see how they like it.
I think we need to actually look at what people want to be described as, allow people to self-define and grapple and deal with the complexity of the experiences. I don't know how that might look as we move forward, but I think we need to stop trying to find the easy answer and deal with the complexity of experiences. And that's the only way we'll be able to deal with them with any kind of effectiveness.
It just feels like a distraction, if I'm honest, like that whole like contention about that word. If we just stop using it and stop responding to it, then it kind of ceases all power.